All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. My name is Jim Crispino. I'm the Senior Director for Developer Evangelism here at Genesys, and this is our monthly DevCast series. And this month's topic is kind of a year-end wrap-up, 2023 year-end DevCast highlights. We'll go back and kind of look at some of the things we've talked about this year, and that is not going to take me the entire hour. So we'll probably turn this into kind of a Ask Me Anything session, kind of as we get past the year wrap up. And I will warn you, I am struggling with a lingering cough from a cold I had about a month ago. So I will try not to have a coughing fit. If I do, I might go on mute real quick. Hopefully I'll be able to get through this webinar, but I just want to warn you about that. My voice is a little raspy and I do have a cough. All right, before we get going, I'll keep more than 10 minutes of Q&A. Like I said, I'll probably open this up as an Ask Me Anything session. If you do have a question as we're going through things, use the Q&A widget in Zoom, the Q&A button at the bottom. Post your questions into that, and as I get a chance, I'll monitor that and try to answer those. We are recording this session, and it will be uploaded to our YouTube community channel, where you can watch this, a replay of this video, as well as any of our previous DevCast videos. And you can easily get to those through our Developer Center. Go to the Developer Center, and on the main landing page, there's a big old button that says video there. That you can go look at not only DevCast, but our other video series as well. All right, and with that, as you guys know, I am not a big slide person, so I just have really one slide as a kind of, I went back to that video channel and looked at what we've done for the last year from a DevCast series anyway. And I'm going to kind of touch on each of these, talk about these a little bit, and I'm going to point out some additional highlights that have happened since then. So the first one we touched on was process automation triggers. So to refresh your memory, or if you weren't able to attend that, Genesys Cloud has the ability to define what we call triggers. These are the ability to have the system watch for an event that happens. That event can be an agent state change. It can be an agent answers a call, agent hangs up a call, agent wraps up a call. There's I don't know, a dozen events maybe that you can ask the system to watch for. With those events, you can define a set of matching criteria, filter criteria, that says, if this event arrives and the media type is a call and it's from this queue and it was handled by this agent, so you can combine filter criteria. If the event matches and all the filter criteria matches, then it will invoke a workflow in Architect. So you guys are probably familiar with call flows and email flows and chat flows. We have a generic workflow that is invoked by triggers. And so based on system events, you can invoke a workflow and perform some action. You can, I don't know, send out a survey when a call ends. You can, send data to a third-party system. You can update a CRM. You can really do anything you can dream up based on those events. We actually use triggers as kind of a workaround for open messaging. So open messaging is the ability for Genesys to link to really any third-party messaging app, any text-based messaging app. And one of the things that we don't have there is the ability to know when an agent joins or leaves the open messaging chat. So we use automation triggers. We watch for when the agent answers that chat and when the agent releases that chat. And when those triggers happen, then we can send a message to the messaging channel to let them know that the agent's joined and that the agent's left. So there's lots of uses for this. I am going to hop out of the slides for a moment. I'm going to stop sharing. One moment. All right, you guys are going to see the slides here. Give me a second. I'm going to hop out of here. All right. So one thing, when we did our talk on process automation triggers, at the time, we didn't have an admin user interface. So everything you did with triggers had to be done via the API. So to define the trigger, you had to make an API request to create the trigger with all the matching criteria and everything. And it was a bit of a hassle. So if you go to admin now, let's see. I want to make sure I'm sharing my screen. Yep. Okay. So if you go to admin now, it's under the architect section because triggers are loosely related to architect right now. Triggers invoke workflows. So it kind of makes sense. It's under the architect. And we have a trigger admin panel now. You can see all the triggers that you have defined. So you no longer have to do this via the API. You can add a new trigger, give it a name and a description, and then define the additional items behind it. I have a couple I'm just going to show you real quick. So this is an example one that it's not activated right now, so it's not actually running. But this gives you a good idea. You tell it the event, the topic that the event topic you want to monitor. So in this case, it's whenever a conversation is triggered for after call work, then this trigger will be evaluated. If it does get evaluated successfully, then it will invoke this workflow. So you can see the number of workflows that you have set up in Architect. You can pick from those. Here are those extra conditions. You use JSON path to navigate into this event schema. So you can use the properties from this event schema to define the JSON path query over here, and any number of operators. So we have a number of operators. You can get some help on that to see what each of those operators means, and then a value. In some cases, so this is still not pretty. If you pick a queue ID, you have to know the identifier of the queue. It would be nice if you could just have a drop down of your queues. Perhaps that's coming in the future, but for now, you have to put the queue ID in there, like here, the wrap-up code ID, etc. So you can go through the event schema, find out the things you can monitor. See, so media type, you want to monitor for media type equals, and then it's got to be one of these known media types. So you put that in there. So if those all evaluate, then the workflow will be invoked, and the workflow can do whatever you want. All right, I'm not going to go back to slide mode. You guys can just see PowerPoint here as it is. So that's the new feature I wanted to touch on, process automation triggers. That admin interface that had been long in coming. So I'm excited that that's there now. Next thing, we talked about Genesys Cloud EX. That is Genesys Workforce Management as a standalone offering. So if you didn't know, Genesys Cloud Workforce Management, which is called Genesys Cloud EX, can be purchased from Genesys and used with third-party contact centers, believe it or not. So you could buy Genesys Cloud EX and use that with Five9 or TalkDesk or Cisco or Avaya or Amazon Connect. We have a number of third-party providers in the App Foundry now, which offer connectors to those systems. So, if you're working with a BPO or something like that, and they have a different contact center platform, but they're looking for a workforce management system, you might suggest that to them. You all are Genesys customers already, so you probably don't have need for a standalone workforce management platform. But it's an interesting platform. Hopefully, it'll be a good product. So the next one we covered was SIP UUI data and SIP headers. So Genesys Cloud, when you're using bring your own carrier, especially to connect your call center platform with maybe another one. Maybe you've got Genesys Cloud, agents on Genesys Cloud, and maybe you've got Genesys Engage and Pure Connect or Pure Connect, and you've linked those two with a BYOC connection, but you want to exchange data. Maybe agents on Engage or Pure Connect answer those calls and have collected data, but they need to throw them over the wall to agents on Genesys Cloud, and they want to take the data that they've collected about that, CRM account IDs, whatever. You can use UUI data. We talked about UUI data, and you can watch that session. That all still applies. One of the new things that has come about, and this just happened back at the end of October, if you go to admin, and I think I've talked about the release notes panel, you may have it collapsed over here. If you've collapsed it, if you expand it, every week on Wednesdays, Genesys updates the release notes, because that's we're an agile development shop. Every Wednesday we have new releases that come out. And if you go back to October, one of the things that came out was architect voice flow access to inbound headers on BYOC calls. So what that means is, if we go click on that link, that brings up the release notes, and it gives you a little bit more detail. There are two new actions in Architect that, if you're using bring your own carrier technology, you can now get access not just to the SIP UUI header. So the SIP UUI header was useful, but sometimes confining, because you only had this one header that you could use to exchange data, and it has potential limits in the amount of data that you can exchange in that header. Now, Genesys has the ability to access any SIP header through a BYOC trunk, and you can get all of the headers sent to you, or you can just get a small subset. So as you can see, SIP's a lot like HTTP. It's got headers that can be sent, and you can exchange information in those headers as well as in the payload of the SIP request. So getting access to any SIP header is really important, especially on a BYOC trunk. Not everybody supports SIP UUI. Not everybody supports it in the same way. And some vendors use custom fields. So here you can use any SIP header you want, get the data from that, and use that in an architect flow for routing. It's again, let's say you've got a Genesys Cloud instance and you work with a BPO, and you want to set up a SIP trunk between you and the BPO so that you can throw calls over the wall to them, and any calls they have that need to escalate back to the main contact center can do so, and can do so with data. And maybe that BPO is not using Genesys Cloud, or maybe they are, and you still want to trunk them together. You can now use any SIP header to exchange data between the two. So that's a pretty big feature that kind of snuck in under the radar. Actually, I did not know that was coming. So that was great. Let's see. Custom client apps. We talked about the many ways that you can embed a UI in Genesys Cloud. So you can embed apps off of the apps menu. They can pretty much have the full screen, basically all the white space, except for the nav bars. You can have an app there. You can have apps that live on this sidebar, and you can have apps that, as you're handling a conversation, there's an iframe over on the right-hand side, a number of widget panels on the right-hand side while you're handling a call or a chat, where third parties can embed. So we talked about how you can embed your own web apps using our Client Apps SDK, and to actually integrate with the Genesys Cloud UI, take advantage of some of the events that happen there. Analytics. If you watch the release notes every week, there are new analytics items. It's just a common theme. We have been working hard to update analytics to really make it be able to report on everything conceivable that you all might need access to. So we just touched on analytics. I could probably do a whole year's worth of DevCast just on the various aspects of analytics. There's a lot to that platform. So we covered that. We have other previous DevCasts that do go into detail on some of those analytics things. So, review those, look at the documentation on the Developer Center. The docs are really thorough. I think the documentation on analytics is great, personally. And so if you need to use that, I'd start with the Dev Center and start there. We had a discussion on developing a mobile app with Genesys Cloud and how that might integrate and the various things that you can do there. That was a great series. There's a go watch that. There's a discussion on the different ways that you can integrate and why you might choose one over the other. Business process task routing. So I talked about that just 2 months ago. At the time, I believed that release was imminent, and it was supposed to be. During our QA of that product release, some features came up that needed addressed, that they wanted to get into the release before actually releasing it. So business process task routing is still in preview. If you've got the preview turned on for your org, all of it still works. But the release has been delayed till March of 2024, so end of Q1 of 2024. And that's the current release date. It should hit that target. It was really ready. That's why we did the DevCast on it, because it really was pretty much ready, but they just had to take care of some scaling issues that they ran into with really large volumes. So so I'm looking forward to that coming out, because that's going to open up a lot of things that you can do to route third-party items through Genesys. Work that takes a long time to perform, or media channels that Genesys doesn't support, you'll be able to deal with task routing. And then we did a session on just the general Developer Center, how to use it, how to get the most use out of it, how to take advantage of the tools that are there. All in all, it was a pretty good year of feature releases, and next year's going to be fantastic as well. We've got updates coming. Right now, we have what we call the audio hook monitor. That is passive audio out of the platform. Many of our App Foundry partners use that to do things like voice biometrics, to do transcriptions for languages that Genesys doesn't support, to do third-party voice recording, to do sentiment analysis, so while the call's going on in real time and things like that. We are enhancing audio hook. That also, I believe, is scheduled for, I think it's maybe the first half of 2024. I don't think it's going to hit March, but I think it's going to be close to around that date. So I'll say first half of 2024, where we'll have bi-directional audio. And that is going to open up the ability to do third-party voice bots with Genesys Cloud. We can already do third-party voice bots today with the pre-built Lex and Dialogflow and Nuance, and I don't know, there might be one other. But we will open that up, and many of our third-party vendors have the ability to do voice bots, but no integration point yet. So that's coming. There may be, you all may find that useful in your own development. Maybe you want to integrate your own bot system that you have on premise or something, and you want to integrate that in. So that's coming, and task routing is coming, and then lots of just little enhancements that I'm looking forward to. So that's really the wrap up I had. I can tell I'm starting to, I'm having to hold back the cough, but I'm going to try and open this up as an Ask Me Anything session at this point. So if you have any questions, anything you'd like to discuss, have me show you about Genesys Cloud, post that into the Q&A, and I will answer those as best I can. And if we don't have any questions, then we might just wrap this DevCast up early, and that'll be it for the year. And we'll plan on another DevCast toward the end of January as we all get back in and online after the holidays. So give everybody just a few minutes. If you have a question, post it into the Q&A section, please. All right, well, I am not seeing any questions come in. Maybe with that, we'll wrap this up. If you do have any development questions, please visit the Developer Center. Let's go there, Developer Center, and click on the forum link. Go to our developer forum and post questions about the APIs, really kind of anything you can think of. Post them in there. We've got various sections on each one. The platform API is kind of the general purpose forum for anything API related, but we've got subcategories for web messaging and data actions and web chat and even triggers and analytics. Feel free to post into whatever category, and we all monitor those questions pretty regularly. We try to get you answers as quick as possible that way, and we'd be happy to help you out with anything that you have. So with that, we'll wrap up this session for the year, and we'll be back with more DevCast series next year. So thank you all for joining, and thank you for putting up with me with my cough. And all right, we'll talk to you all next year. Bye-bye.